South Africa's mining industry is trailing behind with regard to the local and international norms of gender diversity, particularly in terms of women in professional and management roles, states the Women in Mining South Africa Survey 2013, suitably released this Women's Month at Mining Lekgotla 2014 in August. The volunteer not-for-profit organization's newly elected chairperson, Nolene Pauls, explains the reasoning behind the survey.
It was basically to find out from women in the mining industry whether they feel that enough's being done within mining companies to incorporate them into the mining industry. But more importantly, it's about finding out from the women whether they are actually taking advantage of the initiatives and the opportunities being offered to them.
To ensure that women have a support network in place and access to top female role models, Pauls introduced a patron initiative that includes high-up women such as Anglo-American Executive Director South Africa, Kanyisile Kweyama, who became a patron late last year.
WIMSA is meant to be the voice of women in the mining sector. And you need role models and drivers that are going to go and drive the female agenda in the mining sector. So given that there are so few of us, literally a handful, that are in a position to go and talk to decision makers and to make an influence at the top level of mining companies, I felt that I do need to accept that responsibility so that I can make a change for women in mining and be their voice, because there are many women miners out there who do not have the opportunity to speak for themselves. So at least as a patron, you have the ability to influence, to change, and to be their voice.
Initially, Kweyama's opinion of the mining industry was not a favorable one, but has changed while working for Anglo-American.
My family was not a mining family in that my father, even though he came from KwaZulu-Natal, didn't come up to Johannesburg to work in the mines. But we had my mother's brother used to work in the gold mines in Carltonville. So very early on during the 70s, when I was in primary school, he would obviously go to work for about a year and then come back and tell us all the stories about the mining sector, his experience from medical testing, from the conditions they were living in the hostels. And it was not a pleasant sight. You know, it was clearly a very lonely being out there away from his family, and some of the treatment that they had to go through even as they were undergoing medical exams just made you cringe even as a little child. So it was not an attractive sector in my eyes. It provided an income because he came back with money and was able to assist the family, but still it was under very difficult conditions. My father also bought us a book. He had gone overseas and came back with a book by Ernest Cole called House of Bondage. And a big part of it, it's a pictorial book. Ernest Cole was a photographer in exile who has since passed on. And it had pictures of mine workers from the time that Deba went out to recruit, coming in to Gauteng in trains and buses, overcrowded, standing naked there. You know, some of the images, not ones that you want to repeat. So I didn't have a very pleasant visual of the mining sector impression. But once I worked in the mining equipment provision space as a supplier, and then in the mining sector, and I then had an opportunity to go when I used to work for Anglo-American Platinum, to operations and see the improvements that have been made in the hostels, going underground and seeing that it actually is a very clean, very safe area, well ventilated, and people are working. It's still hard and dangerous, but the conditions had improved.
Conversely, Chamber of Mines Head of Health, Dr. Tutula Balfour-Kaipa's exposure to the mining industry while growing up was the opposite.
When I was aware of the mining industry fairly early, I'm from a rural area in the Eastern Cape of Imvaba. The men in that area, they used to be recruited through Teba to go to the mines, and they would come back with money, and they would come back speaking Fanagalo, and they would make sure that everyone knows they are from the mines. So they wouldn't speak Xhosa when they come back, they would speak Fanagalo, because then it would mark that you are from the mines, and it was actually a status symbol to be from the mines. So I must say that then for me, having grown up in that area, going to the mines was in a way an achievement. So if you couldn't be educated, then you went to the mines. So in a way it shaped my a more positive, view of the mines as a provider of income, to families.
Balfour-Kaipa does not only wear the hat of health advisor, she has chaired the mining Lekgotla for the past 3 years and hasn't experienced many challenges while chairing the platform for strategic conversations, which took place this August.
Not really. In fact, our committee has got a lot of women, both from the chamber, the Department of Mineral Resources, the National Union of Mine Workers. There's a lot of women on our committee. I'm not sure why, but certainly we are blind to our gender, and I think we have achieved, whatever we set out to do. So actually, now that you point it out, yeah, it has been run by quite a lot of women, and I guess it shows that women can do just about everything, really.
But whether women such as Balfour-Kaipa, a qualified medical doctor, will be encouraged to seek a career and stay in the mining industry, only time will tell. However, Paul says the number of women in the industry is on the rise.
Our research has shown that in the university classes we have classes graduating with 50% women. So more women are actually entering university. And also our stats show that at the moment about 11% of the mining industry workforce are made up by women.
But on whether or not South Africa's mining charter will hit pay dirt in 4 years and achieve female representation in the industry of 20% by 2018, Pauls is a woman of few words.
I think it's going to be quite hard. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Koyama, however, has more to say on the matter.
The targets were set not in isolation. It's not as if government said, this is what you will do. There were negotiations in the mining sector, and companies were part of that. So it's a target that we have set and that we should meet. We cannot renege on it and say, oh, well, the conditions have changed. But the reality is also that a lot has changed since the targets were set, and the mining sector has suffered a lot of economic challenges. A number of mines have had to close, and a number are still undergoing a very serious economic, just even during the economic downturn. So it's not easy. It's not that we're going to just sail and get there, but we have to meet the targets.
Nonetheless, women should not enter the industry blindly.
I think there is still very much a perception of a chauvinist society within the mining industry, and a lot of women feel that there is a glass ceiling. Men seem to have more of a boys' network, and it seems to be inherent with men that there is this network, whereas women don't have that. So they find it perhaps harder to get promoted, and they feel that promotions are being made by who you know and maybe not what you know.
Supporting this view, 42% of respondents to WIMSA's survey feel excluded from informal networks in the workplace based on gender, 20 years after South Africa's legislation changed to support women working underground in the mining industry. Respondents also believe that superior performance will help them make the grade and progress in the field, creating the perception that women have to achieve at far superior levels to men to receive the same advancement opportunities.